Welcome in, everyone. Appreciate you all joining in for this next Doc Talk that we have. Very excited to welcome in our newest faculty member, Mr. Doug MacLean, a longtime NHL veteran who we will get to hear from here just very shortly. Some housekeeping, though, just in case you guys haven't been in before for our Doc Talks, we will be keeping everyone on mute ahead of our question and answer time with you all, which we do want to have you guys answer your or ask your questions and get them answered. In order to do that, make sure that you guys click the raise hand button that will denote to Dr. Lashbrook and myself that you have a question, and we'll bring you up on screen, have you guys ask your question for Doug, and we'll go from there. But first, we will bring in Dr. Lynn Lashbrook, president and founder of Sports Management Worldwide, and he'll be kicking it off. So, Lynn, let's pass the mic to you, and let's get this thing started.
Thank you, Ike. I want to thank the staff back in Portland, and Ike and Sarah and Sharice is in, and Mike Oak and Dino, and we got a good group. Doug, I'm delighted to have you, and I actually read your book, believe it or not. And before I get to that, though, Doug, I do this every time. Assuming you went to high school, tell the 5-minute bio from high school on your journey. We read all about it, but just I want to hear it from you after high school.
Well, funny, I left Prince Edward Island, where I was born, when I was 16 to go to Montreal to play for the Montreal Junior Canadiens. And that's the first time I was ever on an airplane in my life. And I landed in Montreal. And I thought, what the hell am I doing here? So then I did high school in Montreal. I was traded to Brockville, Ontario. I played junior there. And then I went back. I went to St. Louis Blues training camp when I was a 19-year-old, and then I went back and played university hockey in Canada and became a high school teacher for 7 years. Wow. And I coached the junior team in my hometown, and decided to go back to do a master's degree in educational psychology, and I got on with the London Knights, and then from there I became a full-time head coach, which was pretty bizarre. So from a start in Prince Edward Island, a town of 10,000 people, to getting to the NHL was a long way from home, and it was a fun experience.
So, Doug, just so you know, I have some credentials. I was welcomed to the NHL back in the 70s with a guy named Don Cherry and the Kansas City Scouts. That was my introduction to NHL. And then, of course, being athletic director at Alaska Fairbanks for 5 years, had a young coach, Don Lucia. So I got into that ecosystem, and I've been very fortunate. It's one of my favorite cultures of all, including the upcoming NHL draft. And but what I enjoyed about your book, and then I want to we'll take questions a little bit. I have a few questions, but putting a book together myself, and I know how difficult it is. I love your first story of having the electronic part of it. Your daughter had to help you. I think my daughter's helping me with my book, but I admire your book because just in the first 10 pages, just the Berkey comment about lose as much as you can till you get the right draft pick. And I laughed. And so talk a little bit about your first experience as a GM.
Well, you know what? It's funny. I was a head coach with the Florida Panthers, and then all of a sudden I get a call about the Columbus. Columbus were just awarded a franchise, and I had been a coach my whole career, and I thought, well, why not try that? So I put in a call to the owner of Columbus. I was in Florida at the time because I had been with the Panthers. Yeah. And he lived in Gulfstream, just like 5 minutes from my house. So I phoned him and I said, I don't know if you know me, Mr. McConnell, but my name's Doug MacLean, and I'd like to talk to you about your GM job. And he said, I know you. You're just fired last week. So that was sort of the start of it. And then it went, like a month-long process interviewing for this job. And it was bizarre because I get the job as GM, and that was spectacular. Yeah. And then a month after I'm in Columbus, I called Mr. McConnell. I said, Mr. McConnell, we had the building just going under construction. We're setting up the franchise. We had season tickets to sell. The NHL made us sell 12,000. We had to do a TV deal. And I said, Mr. McConnell, we need a president here for the Blue Jackets. He said, that's okay. You can be the president. So all of a sudden, he thought I was running like a Pee Wee AAA travel team. All of a sudden I'm the president, the GM. So I tell the story about going home that night when I became president, pulling out my Florida Panther media guide and going through, okay, I need a VP of corporate sales and I need a VP of marketing. And I wrote all these jobs down, 100 jobs I wrote down that I had to hire. So it was an amazing process. The GM was really something, but to be the president and oversee the building and the building of the franchise and the practice facilities, and it was really quite an experience. It really was.
Doug, speaking back then, I remember in Columbus, and I remember we did one of the drafts back there early on, and I never forget it. But looking at the growth of hockey and watching Commissioner Bettman and having Harry Sinden, your predecessor, teaching for the years, and the stories he told, it's a fascinating growth of hockey. And I watched the Edmonton last night, their streak. Ken Holland speaks at our conference every year. But let's talk about the NHL today. Your comments, being in it all these years, a pretty exciting future. But your comments on the NHL today.
Well, you know what? It's pretty amazing how the business has evolved. It was a $2 billion business, when I was in Columbus. And it's in that 8 to 10 billion range now. That's how much has changed. Mr. McConnell paid $80 million for our franchise in Columbus in 2000. $80 million, and the next franchise will probably sell in the $1 billion range. 650 was Seattle, 500, was Vegas, and prior to that was 80 million. For us in Minnesota. So Bettman, I have issues with Gary, but we're friends, and I applaud the job he's done. And the one thing he's done, he's put a lot of money in the owners' pockets, and he sold the game to wealthy people. And just take Columbus, for example. When I moved to Columbus in 1999 or 98, there was 700 kids playing minor hockey.
Right.
Today, there's 7,000 kids playing minor hockey in Columbus. So, the NHL has done an amazing job of working with franchises to grow the game in the markets. And, Gary, Gary, when he took over, I was assistant GM in Detroit at the time. When he took over, to think what has happened and how he's changed the game into a major. We're still not there, obviously, and we may never be with Major League Baseball and NFL, but he's taken it to an amazing level.
I agree. Couple more specific questions, and I can encourage people to raise their hand because this is about students asking about Doug, and I'm just thrilled to talk to you. We're going to the draft every year. It's been a very special, of all the events we use, it's one of my favorite because it's out there on the ice, and I know the evolution of that. I've been told purportedly, and Mike has shared this with me, it may be the last year on the ice that you're going to more of a virtual NFL war room type, and I understand it. Your comments on this year's draft in Vegas and the future, if I may, just your thoughts.
Yeah, this will be the last year in Vegas. It'll be a spectacle, to say the least, which is what Vegas is all about. And the job they've done there is phenomenal. I've got to give them. It was mind-boggling how they've made this into a great franchise. But I'm disappointed because I love the draft. I'm like you, I'm a big fan of the draft. It was a week where staffs got together, where you ran into hockeyville. I was in Montreal at the draft, and just to walk the streets of Montreal and run into hockey person after hockey person and fans, and it was just a great gathering sport for people in the league and also the fans. And I thought it was just a tremendous time. It was one of the highlights of my year. This was orchestrated by Steve Yzerman and a couple of GMs who really wanted the draft. They wanted to be in their own locales and their own war rooms, and I get it. And Bettman really was not for it, but Gary, and this blows me away, because
Yeah.
when Gary's not for something, it doesn't usually happen. But Gary gave the GMs their own way on this one. And he said, look, if you guys believe that strongly about it, and Stevie Y is an important GM in the league, you know, he's a solid guy. Gary said, I'm okay. If you guys want it that bad, that's the way we'll go. So applaud Gary, applaud Yzerman. I'm disappointed, but
Yeah.
you know, hopefully it'll still be a spectacle of some sort, you know.
You know, Doug, interesting doing all the silos of sports. We go to the combine every year in Indianapolis, and that's our big mothership, if I may, for that particular sport. We're going to miss that too. We'll have to figure out where to meet, whether it's the combine, but bringing in the Ken Hollands of the world and bringing in the Stanley Cup. But I get it. And I do think the NHL will grow that virtual draft to the same. Yes, they will. So before we go to Kareem and other callers, my last question is, and I've saw the negotiations to get back to the Olympics, and also what I see happening in all sports, having their own kind of World Cup, the announcement of the Four Nation Cup. Also, talk just a little bit about that decision to get back to the Olympics, but also make sure the NHL has a business model going forward. What's your comments on that?
Yeah, look, it's really important, in my opinion, for the league. It's the showcase of all showcases. I'll never forget, as long as I live, being at the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver for 10 days and being there and watching every game and watching Canada, US and the gold and the excitement in Vancouver and the excitement all over the world. It's the world stage. We should be there. We have to be there. And I think it's great. The players want to be there. The players really want to be in the Olympics. And that, to me, is what it's all about. Best on best. And I'll tell you what, Canada, US, I'm telling you, I look at what I follow, my son lives in Chicago, and I follow the US youth hockey. It's exploding. It's exploding. Canada, US, I tell you, Canada's got their work cut out for them. They really do.
No, I know. But, you know, I was in Chicago before COVID, or in Berlin. The Chicago Blackhawks had the extra, and it was unbelievable, the kind of growth in the NHL. And then the Four Nation. I'm excited. I think, you know, going back to the Flair TV, the black and white, and then the Flair, we've come a long ways. And that HD has really changed hockey forever.
Yeah, it really has. And, you know, there's the game, you know, I sat in the meetings, Board of Governors meetings and the GM's meetings when we changed the rules from the clutch and grab style of game, you know, to no stick on body, no stick on stick. And it, you know, I got to tell you, we've got a fast game. We've got a skill game. I'd like it to be a little more confrontational. I would like a little more physicalness in the game, but it is a talent skill game now, and it's fast and it's exciting. And you know what? People want to be in the buildings. Fans want to be in the buildings, and that's the greatest thing.
And Doug, I'm down here in Palm Desert. I took my grandson and son less than a month ago to the Firebirds, the Kraken's farm team, if I may. It was fabulous. 8,000 people there. This is only their second year, but the growth of hockey vertically and horizontally. Let's take some callers. Now, this is all about the students. And Doug, thanks for taking the time today. Ike, we'll go to Kareem with your introduction and your question for Doug. Go ahead, Kareem.
Hi, I'm Kareem Al-Shafi. I'm from Calgary. I'm actually enrolled in the class that starts in April, so I haven't really taken the class, but I'm looking forward to it, and especially looking forward to go to the draft. So my question is, so I actually listen to you every Friday on Real Kipper and Born. It's one of the best segments on the show.
Doug, this is a paid advertisement. Go ahead.
So this question kind of comes from that, but you mentioned with Kipper and Born how GMs always kind of make it seem that trading is so hard with the flat cap and the salary cap nowadays, especially because in the last 4 years. So I'm in Calgary, so we're kind of a big part of the deadline this year. And we just saw a trade with money in, money out kind of being the only way to make trades in the last 5 years. So my question is it actually that hard? And is it actually a valid not excuse, but justification for trades and changing of rosters to be that difficult? Or as we see in Vancouver, like Rutherford and Alvin, for example, they make trades all the time. Is that an excuse? Is it valid, or is it kind of somewhere in the
Great
middle?
question, Kareem. Thank you. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, it's challenging because of the cap. There's no denying that, because you've only got so much money to work with. But if you want a deal, you can get it done, and we've seen that. Maybe you have to add a later pick, and have the team take up some money, and there's ways to bring a third team in to take money, for cap. So I think I don't know. Am I getting feedback?
No,
or
no,
Yep. No, we're
you're
good.
okay.
We're good. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. No, so look, I think it's a bit of an excuse to say it, you look, when you're a GM and you're dealing with your media, you're always really, really careful what you say. But and I agree, it's more challenging than when I was there. But you can also get it done if you want to get it done bad enough. There's always ways to do it, of bringing in third teams. Look, you study the cap of every team in the league. You know who has space. You know who has room. You know who has extra picks. You know who needs picks. So I'm with you a little bit. And the Tanev deal is going to be a really interesting deal coming up, because they probably have to move him. They want a first pick. So I was just looking through teams today as to who has picks available to get involved in the Tanev. To pay a first-round pick for him, that's a big price for a guy with that many miles on the body. But it'll be intriguing to watch how that deal is put together with a Toronto or an LA or a New Jersey, maybe a Jersey. I'm not sure on them, but some teams like that need a defenseman.
Okay. Doug, we're going to go to Avery next. Avery, come in with your introduction and question for Doug. Thanks for coming. Go ahead, Avery.
Hi, Mr. MacLean. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great.
I am a fan of hockey for a good long while. I live in Florida, and my question is related to the introduction of hockey teams in the non-traditional hockey market. We've heard of rumors with possibly Salt Lake City getting a team, Houston, Atlanta making another run. I myself just got from my fourth
Kraken.
hockey. This is the Kraken. I saw the Kraken play in Seattle. Their fan base is awesome. I have seen teams in Tampa Bay. I've seen them in Florida, down in Sunrise where I live. And before Seattle, I did go to Hockey Night in Canada in Toronto.
Wow.
So the overall question is, what do you think of the introduction of hockey, especially with the Willie O'Ree Award that's awarded for the expansion of hockey in different communities? What do you think of hockey being entered in those non-hockey markets, especially I believe it was Tennessee State, which is a HBCU, they got a hockey team. What do you think about these cities and especially colleges that may not have traditionally a hockey team, but they want to add this sport that just only being at 4 games just brings people together?
Yeah, go ahead, Doug. Thank you.
You know what? I've had experience with, being with two expansion teams in Florida. I came in the third year, and in Columbus to start it. Look, it's challenging when you move into a non-traditional hockey market. It really is challenging, but you've got so many tools available to you as franchises today, and it's a big part. I'm telling you, with Seattle, with Columbus, with whatever team comes into the league, it is a huge part of making sure the game is for everyone, and that it's available for everyone, and that the teams work desperately hard to make sure it's all inclusive. We had great programs, and Willie, who happened to be a friend of mine, and he was in Columbus a lot. Willie was a guy that would come in as an 80-year-old, and I'd see him down on the ice stick handling with the kids, you know?
Yeah.
So Willie has been a great role model. And you know what? I look at you know what's going on in most markets. You see the people that are coming to games. I think we've made it, or we're it's still a challenge, but I think the NHL is doing a good job. And most importantly, the individual teams are, especially the new franchises.
Right.
Especially
Doug,
the new franchises.
I'll add to that with the college athletic director and CCHA, and I met all the people, the growth of hockey and Omaha starting hockey. You know, it's the third or fourth most revenue championship besides the football, basketball, and baseball. It's that successful. So I love her question. Let's go to our next.
Big time. Great question.
I'm going to go to Braxton, who's an alumni of ours. Braxton, come in with your introduction for Doug.
Hi, Mr. MacLean. I'm Braxton Abella. I am the founder and editor of hockeyfreeforall.com, a platform where I kind of post the results of my findings on my created analytic that I use to evaluate players, coaches, and teams from a mistake minimization angle. I've read your book a couple times. I'm really interested in what you have to say, kind of just about the state of affairs in Russia right now. You've had some history with Russian players during your time in management, and I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are just on the overall outlook of the situation.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It really is. I mean, I was with a lot of Russians in my career, from Fedorov to Kozlov to Konstantinov, and then, you know, making the big mistake of drafting Nikolai Zhernev 4th overall, who, by the way, maybe, and I said it in the book, maybe the most talented player I've ever been around. This guy was so good, but this is a kid who left the Ukraine as a child and went to play in Moscow, and, you know, missed the family side of things. And when I got him as an 18, 19-year-old, it was a sad case. Now, that's not, you know, Fedorov was the opposite. Fedorov was a refined kid. He picked up English quickly. He wanted to learn. I think it's more the individual players. There's some magnificent guys there. And I think back to about my scout in Russia, who's one of the good guys I've ever been around. Different cat, you know, but a good person. And I think it now with the challenges there, with the war, it makes it even more challenging. I used to go to Russia twice a year to scout. I wouldn't dream of going there right now. I wouldn't dream of going there. And teams obviously are nervous about it.
You know,
so
Doug,
it is really different. I don't know if I don't know if I answered your question there, but you know what? It's a tough situation.
Ironically, I went to Russia and did an exchange program in '88 when the wall went down in Germany. My point would be, we'll get back to one world, one country. I mean, we just got to get through. It's a very tough time. I always say sports is a weapon of mass construction, but it's challenging right now. Very good question. Let's go to Brogan with your introduction and question for Doug. Brogan, thanks for coming in.
Hey, Doug. My name is Brogan Houston. I'm here in Rexburg, Idaho, but I am from British Columbia. So my question is about finding a job in the sports world. So I'm about to graduate from university here. I've worked for all these different, low level, writing outlets and scouting and that kind of thing. And I've probably applied to 400 different jobs, for NHL teams or for the NHL or for, even smaller market team, like smaller league teams. And it seems to be the hardest thing about working in the industry is actually getting that first job. What advice would you give?
Doug, let me go first, only because that's why you're with us. Good to see you, Brogan. We created this company years ago to get you networked and in the ecosystem, informational interviews, including learning from Doug. The more people you meet, come to our hockey conference. You just came to the Doc Talk. You're going to get to know us. But the reason Doug joined us, he also cares about you working in hockey. And we give a lot of good advice. I just appreciate you coming today. Doug, your encouragement to somebody that at least came to the Doc Talk because they're curious about knowing more.
It's funny. When I was 29 years of age and teaching high school in PEI, I used to dream of getting to the NHL. I really did. I dreamt of it. And I was 20. That's when I remember saying to my wife, Jill, I said, I'd see guys getting jobs in the American League as a coach, and I'm coaching junior A and PEI, and I'm thinking, well, it looks like my chance is come and gone. I'm not going to get to the NHL, which was a long way, by the way, from PEI.
Right.
A lot further away than Idaho, by the way, British Columbia. But you know what? It's funny. I applied for a job with the London Knights, and I remember writing Don Boyd, the GM and coach of the London Knights, and I said, look, I'm coaching in the junior league in PEI, which was a nothing league to the London Knights, trust me. And I said, I just finished. We won the championship. I'm going to London to do my master's. Is there any way you'd consider me as a volunteer assistant coach with the London Knights? And he sends back a letter, said, hey, I'm intrigued. If you come to training camp, if I like you and you like me, maybe we can do something. That was the biggest break in my life, getting that opportunity to be a volunteer assistant coach of the London Knights. The next year, through Don Boyd, I got the University of New Brunswick job. But going back to the doc's comments on networking, my first NHL job I got because Jacques Martin became the head coach of the St. Louis Blues. And I had worked hockey schools with Jacques from the time I was 17 in Ontario. And every summer I would go up to Ontario and I'd work hockey schools, and I'd meet Leo Boyven, Orville Tessier, Jacques Martin, Tony McDonald, all people that were around the NHL. And it was networking. And I think back to how lucky I was, but that's what it is. You need breaks, and you need somebody when your resume hits their desk, there's got to be somebody on there they recognize. Right. That's
our game plan, and we call it our Rolodex is your Rolodex and lifetime membership. Doug, you're going to love what we do in our company, but we couldn't do it without you. Let's go to our next caller. My next caller.
We got Tyler up.
Tyler, let's go to your introduction. Keep the questions going. We got a lot of people. Go ahead, Tyler.
Hi, Doug. I hope all is well. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tyler Willard. I come all the way from Montreal, a huge hockey market. I was previously at a couple NHL drafts in Montreal and in Nashville. Recently, I just came back from the CHL Top Prospects game in Moncton and met a lot of people over there. My question for you is regarding to negotiations, like let's say previously, like Anaheim had a long duration with Jay Drysdale and Trevor Zegras because they were RFAs. How do you know when you have the hammer and when the agent has the hammer?
And Doug, don't forget your son's an agent, so you have two sides of this coin.
Yeah, you find out real fast who has the hammer, and you know what? It first of all, it depends how good the player is. That's the number one thing. If he's a top player, you want to get him signed. And I'll never forget when I was early on in his GM, free agency was 31 years of age. And the new CBA came in, and all of a sudden it was the biggest change. It went from being an unrestricted agent at 31 to 7 years after you sign your entry-level contract that you're an unrestricted free agent. And I remember phoning Gary Bettman and saying, Gary, please tell me this isn't true, that players are going to be free agents at 25 years of age, unrestricted free agents. That was the biggest change, and it was a dramatic change in negotiations because you see it all the time now. You see it with Matthews, Marner, McDavid, all of them. They can't let these players get – you got it with Draisaitl in Edmonton. He's going into free agency. It's devastating for a franchise. So you have no choice. They're stars. You got to pay them. The price market is already set. So it's really challenging.
Right. Yeah, good stuff there.
But the guys typically guys want term on their deals. Typically they do, as we've seen with the players taking 8-year deals because they can get it at home. Whereas if they sign with somebody else, it's 7 years. So, but it's a fun negotiation. But this is a class, not a 2-minute question. So sorry.
Good stuff here. Let's go to Holly, our next caller. Holly, come in and introduce yourself.
Hi, Doug. My name is Haley, and I'm here from Sarnia, Ontario. And I did the sports analytics, or the hockey analytics, and the hockey GM and scouting course here. And I wanted to say too that I loved watching Hockey Central at noon with you and Kip Rios and Villard. It's one of my favorite shows. But my question is, it kind of goes off the same thing that Brogan asked. I am currently I'm freelance scouting right now. And I've been trying to do like men's and women's, and I've been reaching out to teams and haven't really had any luck. So I was just wondering if you had some advice for someone like me that's looking to join a team as a scout.
Doug, let me add something to her technique. You just keep going, even if you end up with a high school coach. The more networking, and mention Doug's name, SMWW, you'll be shocked. And Doug, we always send out a Starbucks gift card, or maybe a Horton. If it's Canada. But my point is, we send a thank you note, and the information of you is a lifetime membership, and it's a Rolodex. And I do think stay encouraged, because as you try to get a hold of somebody, a live voice, and that person's not available, maybe the assistant, you're only asking for 10 minutes. You may get an hour, but you'll be surprised. And are you coming to our conference in Vegas this year?
I'm thinking about. I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
It's just things in my life have been a bit crazy.
I'm sure, but I will tell you, the best investment you can make. It's the who's who of hockey, and the more people you meet. Doug, your comment to that.
You know what? I'll tell you, it's really interesting. I was talking to Ken Holland and Brad Holland a few months ago, and they were hiring a scout this year, and they hired the first female scout for the Edmonton Oilers. And as you know, as well as I do, women have made unbelievable strides in our game, not only on the ice, but in management. And we've seen it in baseball, we've seen it in basketball. So I really believe that women today are ready to really take off when it comes to, these type of jobs. So be persistent. Teams are looking for good females. They really are looking for good females. And the number one thing is you still have to be a good scout or a good person. And that's what you have to work at. And it's no different than, I had a guy, just to give you a quick story, Scotty Harris, who is director of scouting for the Colorado Avalanche. He was at Memorial University in Newfoundland, and he wrote my office every 2 weeks asking for a job. And finally, Jim Clark, my assistant GM, said, "Oh my God, this kid's driving me crazy. I'm gonna give him an internship. I'm gonna give this kid an internship." He's had 5 or 6 years in Columbus. Then he went to New Jersey with their scouting department, and now he's the number 3 guy with the Colorado Avalanche. And he's a young guy. He's probably 40. So persistence, but you still have to know the game, right, and know the sport. That's the number one thing.
Doug, you're our good friend Mike Johnson in Portland, and Mike called me up about 10 years ago, and a young lady, Lisa, was at our conference, and Mike speaks every year, and he asked for her name and number. She's been with him, vice president now, for 9 years in the Winterhawks. Right. I'm just telling you that we're going to keep working with kids and give them that mentoring. Let's go to Brian with your introduction and questions for Doug. And everybody has questions, keep raising those hands. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for joining the call today. That's really cool. It's exciting to meet you. I actually spent. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. I spent my first 20 working years working for Mr. Mac at Worthington Industries. So it's really cool to to have you on this. This is really kind of special. So definitely familiar with that. I've been to the Worthington suite and the founder suite there in the corner. So that's definitely really cool with that. But my question really is, in our team up in Toledo, we have a ECHL team. How important is those developmental leagues like the ECHL and the AHL for the NHL?
The AHL, without a doubt, is the most important league for NHL teams. But the way it is with the NHL with 50 contracts, you need an East Coast League team. You desperately do. And you need one that is really well run. And great coaching is critical. Great management is critical. And you also like an ECHL team with a really solid fan base so that it's a good experience for your players. Especially goaltenders, go through the ECHL because you can only put 2 with your American League team, and you usually have 3 or 4 goaltenders in your system. So the East Coast League, it's amazing when you really look at the number of players have come from the East Coast League, the number of coaches that have come from the East Coast League to the NHL. So I think it's a great league. The American League is without a doubt number 1, but the ECHL has made some great strides, and it's a good league. And Toledo's always been a great franchise. It always has been.
You know? Great insight, great story. Let's go to Ryan next with your introduction and questions for Doug. Ryan, come on in.
Hey, Doug. Thanks for your time. Yeah, my name's Ryan. I'm from Edmonton. Grew up as an Oilers fan. There's been a bit of Oilers discussion already, so I'd love to hear that.
Sorry about the loss last night. I thought it'd go forever.
It was a good game.
I hope Ken doesn't get fired.
But yeah, no, I'm actually living out in Windsor, Ontario now. I'm attending the University of Windsor and a master's in sport management. My question is similar to a few others here. I'm very keen on working in a career in hockey ops, and I know networking has kind of been the big kind of theme so far, but I was curious if, on asking Doug here, if there was just one skill that someone can develop to make themselves employable in hockey ops that isn't networking. I'm just kind of curious on that, as I'm looking just on like developing soft skills and stuff like that too. So just was curious.
So what are you studying right now at Windsor?
I'm doing a master's in sport management and leadership.
Okay. You know what is the one skill? You know what? I think back to reading resumes, you know, when I remember we had 3,500 resumes on file with the Blue Jackets when we first started our franchise. And there's something on that resume tweaked me, either a name or a skill or something that kid has done or the girl has done, whether it's working at University of Windsor, whether it's with the hockey team, whether it's with, you know, the junior team there, whether there's something on that resume that used to tweak me. And I'd say, hey, I like this about this kid and I'd like to give him a chance. But I keep coming back to it. You still have to have a feel for the game, a feel for the game. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a coach. It doesn't have to be a GM. It can be analytics. It can be in any facet of the business. But I think there's just something in that resume that used to tweak me. And I'd say, and I was lucky because I had to hire a lot of people, you know, and I think that's one thing I'm really proud of. General manager of the Colorado Avalanche, Chris McFarland, we hired as a 30-year-old from Pace University who played a little bit of hockey and became our hockey operations guy. He's a GM of Colorado today.
Right.
So,
and Doug, I want to add this. I call it watering the cinder track, which I did in 1966 off season from football. And I ended up, the track coach hired me because I'd get up early and water the cinder track. But I had tried to get all the sports management students to try to get into that ecosystem. Like Windsor has a very good hockey program. They used to play us in Alaska. So what we do when students come in, we really encourage them, they're still in school, to try to get their foot in the door. What Mike and Dino and you teach, and it gives them understanding. So that's what we'll continue to do.
Let me just give you Jimmy Devellano, who's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He's a friend of mine. He actually phoned me. Jimmy D's 81. He phoned me. He said, I gotta tell you, Doug, your book is the most accurate hockey book I've ever read. And I'm a historian. He said, and by the way, you were nice to Ken Holland and myself, but you were even nice to people I know you don't like. That's what he said. So Jimmy Devellano is in the Hall of Fame as a scout, GM, vice president. He was a rink rat in Toronto, a rink rat. And he drove people crazy at the rinks, introducing himself all the time. And I got this from Bill Torrey, who hired him as a part-time. Cliff Fletcher hired him as a part-time scout with the St. Louis Blues. Yeah. And Bill Torrey hired him as a part-time scout with the New York Islanders. And he rose to the pinnacle of the game. And he drove people crazy by wanting to be in the game. And I don't know that it's changed. I really don't know that it's changed. But you got to be able to be around people. And, when we're in the league, I make it sound like it's easy, but it's not easy, man. It's a grind. Right. But if you really believe in it, really strive and challenge yourself to do whatever it takes,
Good stuff, Doug. Good insight. Let's go to Carson next with your introduction.
Well, Dr. Lashbrook, how are you?
Have you in?
Mr. MacLean, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name's Carson. I'm a second-year law student at Thompson Rivers University in Kamloops, BC. I have a huge passion for sport management, obviously, and I'm looking at careers in professional hockey. My question to you, being someone who just took labor law last semester, where do you see negotiations going between the NHLPA and the NHL? Thank you.
Good question.
Oh man, lawyers. I talk to lawyers too often. Anyway, that's a great career for you. That's exciting. Look, I think the PA has been a disaster for me. It really has been. It has not been a good situation. With all due respect to Donald Fear, it was a retirement job for him, and he didn't do a very good job. And I would say it on the air. I would say it on this broadcast. He was on remote control. I think Marty Walsh comes in with a tremendous background. I've talked to him a couple of times. I know people that know him. I know people that know what's going on in the PA. And I think that he's changed the culture already, and he's in the process of changing it. And Bettman is tough, but Marty Walsh will be a challenge for Bettman. He will be. And the players desperately need it right now because they've thrown in the towel in the last couple of negotiations. So, I think Marty Walsh is a good man.
I agree with you, and I think it's great insight. I knew Donald and Steven. I listened to them. They're both from Kansas City, if I may, but I felt you really said that right. We got our new NFLPA, same thing. Labor piece is so important for the growth of the game, and maybe we'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's go to Kareem again. You don't have to introduce yourself. Your follow-up question, Kareem. Anybody else have questions? We'll stick around a little bit, but we really appreciate having Doug in here. We got a few more minutes, but anybody have any other questions? Kareem, go ahead.
Yeah, so you kind of said it at the tail end of my first question, talking about Chris Tanev. And you brought up a first-round pick, and I was listening to something on TSN, I think a couple of weeks back, and I think it was Jeff O'Neill, actually, who brought up how a first-round pick 10, 15, 20 years ago could get you, like, a really good player, like almost a star, a guy with term. And it seems like nowadays first-round picks get thrown around more kind of casually. Last deadline, I think it was like 10 or 11 first-round picks were traded. Has the valuation of like a first-round pick changed that much? And if it has, what's kind of like the mindset behind that?
Good question, Kareem. Go ahead, Doug.
It's a great question. Well, it varies with different teams and the success of the team. You take Tampa Bay Lightning, who have won a couple of cups, recently. All of a sudden, they're not worried about draft picks because they're worried about trying to stay competitive and giving the Hedmans and the Kucherovs and the Points and the Vasilevsky another chance to win. So they'll move the picks and they don't value them as much. But I'm going to tell you this. If you go back in the history since 1990, there's hardly been a team win a Stanley Cup that didn't have 10 of their own draft picks on the team. St. Louis Blues won their first Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. First time they ever had 10 draft picks of their own. Draft picks are still critical. You don't have to look any further than Edmonton. Montreal are trying to fix it because it was, they're trying to fix it. Toronto, high picks. If it's not for Marner, Matthews, Morgan Riley, John Tavares, who's a first round picks are still really valuable. And I'm telling you this, GMs hate to trade them. They hate to trade them. They may not act it, and owners don't like. I just read Dolan, the Ranger owner tonight, said, I don't want our first round pick being moved. I don't want a Band-Aid. That's Dolan. So, you know what? I think that they're still very valuable, and the problem is, and I get ripped because I took Brule over Kopitar, okay, in the 2006. It's driven me crazy in my career, And as Kiprio said to me on the show a few weeks ago, what do you think that cost you taking Brule over Kopitar? I said probably about $30 million personally. Is probably what it cost me. So first round picks are real important. Trust me.
Yeah. We got a couple more here, and then we'll call it a day. Our staff will stay in, Mike and Dean, on everybody to answer your questions. But let's go to Tyler next.
So I guess follow-up question, and it's now regarding to the draft. When it comes to analytics and when you're trying to understand junior players, since the timeline is so short and so little, how do you try and find those that are most accurate, and how do you deal with any outliers?
And isn't that why we fire coaches and GMs every year? But go ahead, Doug, try it.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? When you're looking at 18-year-olds, it's really challenging. It really is. The NFL have the luxury of older players. NBA are still, they're young, but they're 18-year-old hockey players from all over the world. If you're 15% successful in the draft, you've had a really good career. That's hard to believe, 15% successful. And I think that you use every tool imaginable. The eye test, the reports. The first thing I did every morning when I got to my office was I pulled on the computer and I read every report from my scouts from the night before. All my pro scouts, everybody had to, after the game, fill out the report, and it had to be in my office by 8 o'clock in the morning. So in my computer on RinkNet, which you guys are, a lot of people are well aware. So I would read every scouting report, every amateur report. But what's intriguing is when you go to the scouting meetings as a GM and you listen to your scouts who have seen, I would see a player twice.
Yeah.
A GM. Like, it's BS that you think GMs make these picks, guys. It's not. They don't even see them. Right. You see a guy once or twice. You may, if he's in your city or close by and you really think you have a chance, you may see him a little more often. But it's a myth. It's the scouts that do the scouting. And it's every tool from analytics to reports. It's the bird dogs in the areas that know the families, that know the kid, that give you valuable information. There's a lot to it. And you know what? It's still really hard to be right. It's still really hard.
I like it. You're being very transparent and humble. Last question, and then we'll bring Mike in to talk a little bit about if you want to have Doug in a class, etc. But let's go to Matthew, and then I'll pass the mic to Ike. Doug, this has been a fabulous hour. Thank you. Go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys. It's an honor to meet you guys. And my name is Matthew Robinson, and I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. And for the past couple of years, I worked at the Cincinnati Bengals Pro Shop as a sales associate. And, it was a pretty fun job. And I recently just quitted to do something else. But I used to work for the Cincinnati Reds. I kind of broke into sports by having a degree in public safety technology, some security work and
Good
stuff
to have
like
you. What's your question, my friend?
Yeah. My question is that would you recommend we have a minor league hockey team here in Cincinnati? Would you recommend going through football or NHL or
Let me add to that before Doug gives you his answer. I so admire you coming in today, and you're in the ecosystem of sports already. Whether you're working at the at the souvenir shop or not makes no difference. You're in the ecosystem. And what I urge you to think about, and Michael talk to you, if you got our Rolodex to go with your passion for working in the game, there's cross-pollination of jobs out there. Doug would tell you, I'll let him comment, whether you work in basketball, football, or baseball, working in sports is working in sports. And hockey may have a little different culture and everything, but I admire you for coming in here. Doug, your comments to this young man?
Yeah. Look, it's unbelievable. In Columbus, when we would be looking for a ticketing person or a salesperson or, whatever occupation or, career they were in, we drew number one from other franchises. We had hired a lot of people from the Bengals, a lot of people from the Browns, a lot of people from the Reds, and vice versa. My assistant in sales would leave to take a better job with the Bengals or the Reds. So there was a lot of transfer. We had people from the Texas Rangers. I hired a sales guy from the Texas Rangers. So the doc is right. There is a real cross between all sports. And you know what? I'm telling you something. If you're in sales, it is a really important job to the president of your team, because selling is what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
You got to play the game, but you got to have people in the seats, and you got to have people buying your merchandise, and sales is a critical part. I used to tease the marketing guys. I used to say, you marketing guys cost me money. You sales guys make me money. That's not accurate, but I used to like to bug them about it.
Doug, before I let you go, I want to tell you my story up in Alaska. I was listening to radio. I go to work early, and it's dark up there. And Frank Zamboni passed away, and I think probably 91 or whatever.
Right.
And wow, it's a great story. The Zamboni's a great story. And so I get in, I get my coffee, and my ice rink guy, Scott Rosales, always comes in the morning and has coffee with him. And I said, not trying to be funny, I said, I hear Zamboni died last night. And Scott turned to me and said, I just got off it. It's working fine. So I love hockey, and we're so lucky to have you. And Harry was with us for a long time, and he actually, Mike told me, he announced his resignation live on Zoom. So after 20 years of working with us and you're tired, you can either come in live and say you resign, or you can let us handle it differently.
It's funny. I think I told Mike this. I interviewed with Harry at one time for the assistant. When Mike Milbury left the Bruins, I interviewed with Harry, and I'll never forget something he said to me in the interview. He said, I will never hire an assistant GM who cannot walk into my dressing room and address the Boston Bruins. Are you capable of walking into that dressing room, standing in front of the team, and addressing the team? And that stuck with me for 30 years, that comment by Harry. And I spent a lot of time with Harry at GM meetings and board meetings, and talk about a knowledgeable, wonderful guy. But that whole group of Bob Pulford, Bill Torrey, Harry Sinden, they were legends. They're legends.
Harry shared enough stories that are not for publication, so they got a treasure on that. But I appreciate you and Mike and Dino. We're lucky to have you. You can hang around a little bit. I'm gonna pass the mic to Mike and do some house keeping chores. And thank you again for taking the time. And Doug, that book is unbelievable, and it's going to grow. And appreciate your trust in us.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Mike, I'll go to you now. Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, perfect. Doug, just before you go, appreciate good seeing you. Looking forward to working with you in the coming weeks, months, and years. And one of the things that you highlighted, and I think it's really important, the course is designed to give those that are involved a real good sense of not just being a GM, not just being a scout, but working in the hockey industry. And maybe you could just highlight from your time. You mentioned there's jobs selling tickets, there's jobs running concessions, there's marketing, there's communications. And, despite maybe you want to be a scout, you want to get into the management, maybe you want to be a coach, there's all kinds of different opportunities. And not only is it for men anymore, it's females. We've seen the growth. Maybe just talk a little bit about the growth and all of those different opportunities.
Well, look, I think it really is true. If you get in with a sports franchise, whether it's a junior team or whether it's an NHL team or whatever, or a American Hockey League team, just because you start in corporate sales or ticket sales, I'll give you, and this is, to me, this is a great story. And I think I told you this, Mike, or when we were on the show. I was coach of the Baltimore Skipjacks in the American Hockey League, Washington's farm team. And I had gone there halfway through the year. And I get a call from Doug Armstrong. And Doug said, I'm doing ticket sales for the Caps in Washington. I'm on their ticket sales. I'm in my first year working in ticket sales. Would you mind if I came down to Baltimore during the games and did your stats between periods? I'd bring down, the shots on goal, the scoring chances, and we could talk between periods and post game. So Doug Armstrong did that for me for half a season. He's the longest serving GM in the NHL today. He went from Washington. He got a job in hockey ops, a basic job in hockey ops in Minnesota with Bob Gainey through his father, who was a referee and scouted for Montreal. And the rest is history. So it doesn't matter. You get your foot in the door, and there's lots of movement within organizations, lots of movement. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. In the Boston Gardens, it was running around passing out media notes, and Harry said, hey, this guy looks like he's ambitious and keen. Hey, son, can you get me this? Can you get me that? Lo and behold, it's Jeff Gorton, who went on to have a pretty good career and is now the president of hockey operations for the Montreal Canadiens.
And you know what? It happens. It happens more than we think. It really does. And it's amazing when you're running an organization. And you're, in Columbus, we have, 250 people working for us, 1,000 people on game night. But it's amazing how certain people jump out at you in all across all departments that are really keeners and really go the extra mile to be noticed and to do a good job. It's the Gorton story is a great one.
One last thing before we pass it back to Dr. Lashbrook to wrap up. We've got some folks that have taken the program in the past. We've got some folks that are thinking about the program. But one of the themes is, how do I get my foot in the door? And you mentioned calling up the Don Boyd in London and saying, look, I'm not looking for anything other than experience. And I know that sometimes now that's a bit of a foreign concept. But it is so true that if you can get your foot in the door, do a good job, it'll lead to another job, and that will lead to another job. If you work hard, you are noticed.
Yeah. Well, Don Boyd, when I finished the year with Don Boyd, I remember interviewing for New Westminster Bruins because of Boydie, and the head coach in Sudbury. Didn't get either of those two. And then I interviewed for the University of New Brunswick job, and it was because of Don Boyd's recommendation that I got the UNB job. That was strictly the number one reason. And then Don Boyd worked for me for 20 years. And because, what he did for my career, and, he ended up working with me for all through our time, or I guess we're together 11 years. So it's kind of funny how it works out.
Yeah, let me add something. Our toolbox, I'm kind of proud of this concept when I started out training people to be an agent, but we do information interviews, as many as they want to do. I start out with 2 for the requirement. I've had people do 30, and I got to be honest with you, be able to call up and say 10 minutes. I'm taking Doug MacLean's class. I just need a 10-minute interview. You might get an hour, but just 10 minutes is networking. And that's where I think we take away that cold calling that so many of us have been lucky to be in the game in one way or another. But we're trying to make that a exponential growth of networking. So again, thanks, Mike. You have anything else you want to add to the students here? I don't want to keep Doug any longer.
You know what? I just think that it's been a great hour, Doug. I appreciate the insight that you've provided. I know that those that are going to be taking the course in the coming weeks, I know that you're going to benefit immensely. It's the type of program that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And I encourage you to be an active participant. As Dr. Lashbrook says, if you show up for a chat and say you don't have any questions, you don't have a question, that means you have all the answers, and why are you even here? But we're going to learn lots and learn from Doug. Again, your experience you've highlighted. We're not just talking about experience coaching and scouting and managing. We're talking about experience as the president of an NHL hockey team. And I'm sure you got grilled on why you lost, from the owner some night in Minnesota, or why did your team not do very well in Toronto 2 nights ago. But equally, I can guarantee you got called in and said, hey, why are we not selling more tickets? Why are we not selling more advertising? So you've got experience in all those areas.
I had a lot of those calls.
Hey, Doug, I think my favorite story is when you got the media guide to try to figure out the blueprint for Columbus. I think that's got to be in the top 10. That's a good one.
Oh my God, I still have the media guide right here in my office. It's amazing. It's my favorite. It's my favorite media guide.
Students stay around and talk to you, Mike. They can do that, of course.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mike,
yeah. Go ahead, Doug.
One question, Mike. Can you just give me a call in the next couple of days, and we can because I know we start next week, and I just want to have a bit of a feel. Okay, that'd be great, man.
Absolutely.
We'd love it. Awesome. Well, Doug,
thank
Dr.
you very
Lashbrook,
much.
yeah, thank you both. And Mike and I will stay on for a few more minutes, answer some more questions about the courses and just kind of SMWW offerings in general. So Doug and Dr. Lashbrook, feel free to duck out if you guys like. You got one more question for? Yeah.
Just one more thing. I'd really like to get it out on my Twitter about the class,
Absolutely.
and about what we're doing. So if somebody can just get in touch with me about how to tag it. And, I'm not I've got like 150,000 followers or something on Twitter. And and then I'm on the Kiprio show every Friday in Toronto.
Perfect.
So I'd like to be able to promote it a little bit for you guys as well.
Absolutely.
So
I'll make sure to be in touch with you tomorrow, and we can definitely get some stuff out to you. I was listening to that same interview that Dr. Lashbrook was talking about with you typing out your book on the iPad and stuff like that. So that was fantastic. And I knew, okay, this guy's going to be a real winner. So thank you again, Doug, for joining us. We really love to have you on. So so to let everyone know, Doug's first class will be starting up next week, the week of February 12th, with Mike Oak and Dino Caputo. So they'll be going through their 8-week session for a hockey GM and scouting course. Doug's book, The Draft Day, is one of the best sellers as well, and we'll be incorporating Doug's book into our course. So you'll be able to obviously get a copy of that and read from what Doug's been able to write about. There he is. He's got the book itself. Tyler's throwing up the thumbs up as well. I believe we got already a few readers.
I've got 2 copies.
You got 2. See, there we go. We love it. It's a great book. So we're helping boost those numbers. There we go. So if anyone has any direct questions about the Hockey GM and Scouting course, obviously feel free to raise your hand. Mike, I think it'd be great if you kind of want to talk a little bit about your experience with the class. I know you've been teaching with SMWW for a long, long time. So you have a ton of experience. And then also, I love what you'd said of what you put into this is what you're going to get out of it. That's also something that I always tell, prospective students. So a little bit about your experience teaching the course, and then also some of the successes that, people have had coming out of your course here with us.
Yeah, I started with SMWW back in 2006. That's when, just after I'd become what I call a real coach, I got fired by the Oshawa Generals. So that was the first time that had happened, and I ended up, ended up joining alongside Dr. Lashbrook and Dino, and have been hosting the weekly classes with Dino ever since then. And really, my background is, born in Ontario, moved around a little bit. My dad was a bank manager, so we did move around a little bit. And one of the stops, and I talked to Doug about it, was Brockville, where Doug played some hockey, I believe. And then, you know what? I got involved in coaching right after taking sports management at school. Coached at every level, junior C, junior A. And as Doug can probably attest to, I'd sit around the board meetings and the league meetings at the junior C level, and we'd be talking about really stupid things. And I'd say, I can hardly wait till I get to the junior A level, because we're going to be talking a lot. It's going to be a lot smarter people. And after about the second junior A meeting, I'm thinking, oh my God, these guys might be more dumb than the ones that I was with at the junior C level. So then I moved on to the university, coached at Wilfrid Laurier for 4 years, and you think now you're at the university level. When you get to the league meetings there, boy, we're really going to be high. Oh boy. And you know what? Lo and behold, I've attended some real doozies with the OHL too. So I suspect that if I was to go and sit in on an NHL meeting, Doug, I may not be surprised as to some of the conversations. But you know what? I've coached at all the different levels, and like I said earlier, I mean, I think you meet people along the way, you work hard, you develop relationships, and when you develop those relationships, you have to nurture them too. You have to spend time connecting with people. I think that's really key. Obviously, from the book and from talking to Doug earlier, and then from listening to him on all the different radio shows that he's been on in the past. I mean, he's obviously connected to a lot of people, but it's because not only do they add value to him, but he adds value to their relationship. And then through the program here, I think one of the aspects I really, really like is the fact that we cover all of the different components of working in the hockey industry. And there's lots of people that think, you know what, I really want to be a general manager. But then they hear and find out more about what is it about scouting? What is it about communications? What is involved with ticket sales? And then they sit back and they say, you know what, that's probably better suited for my skills. And so maybe I need to focus on that area. And we've seen lots of people that have moved on to all different levels, whether it be here in North America, and we've had graduates move on to work for junior teams. We've had graduates to go and move on to work for NHL teams over in Europe. And again, each and every week, you're expanding your network with other students that are involved in the program. And then through the informational interviews, you have an opportunity to reach out to as many people as you want to just find out, how did they get to where they are? What are the skills that you need to have in order to gain a position like them? And again, another opportunity to network and build those relationships.
I love that. Very well said, Kareem. We got a question out of you, so let's bring you back on. And what can we help you out with? What do you got?
Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, just regarding the draft in Vegas. So like I'm signed up for the course that goes beginning of April to beginning of June.
Correct.
And I was just wondering, is there a way to is that sign up for the draft conference available now, or is that something that comes out later?
It will be coming out later. We haven't quite finalized all of our details on our end. So we will be getting that out soon. I would imagine sometime in March. The sooner that we can get out, the better, but there's some more ducks that we have to, get into a row, as they say.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
But yes,
Doug,
we will be sending
just
that out.
talking about the draft, Doug, and moving to a virtual. I mean, firsthand. I mean, in the OHL, we moved to a virtual draft many years ago, and the minute that we did, it was like, oh boy, this is way better. Like, we're not all sitting around the table, have our binders, under lock and key. I mean, you can't have discussions in the virtual room. And I think what happened, quite frankly, is because of COVID, and they did it virtually for a couple of years, the NHL team said, boy, this is way better than sitting on the draft floor. We can talk about, you know what, our pick is coming up. We've got these 3 guys. Are we sure which of the guys is best suited for us? Pray that they don't all go off the board before we go to pick. But, I really think that's what's led to maybe the change of how the draft is conducted.
Yeah, it really is, when you're sitting there on the floor and the tables are right next to you, it's really quite, I'll never forget in Montreal or I'm not sure where it was. I guess it was in Ottawa, the Pierre Dorian leaning over to our table and saying, I mean, he was right next to us. He leaned over and he said, we're taking the goalie, and that's when he took Price. And, because we had the next pick. So it really, it'll be better for the teams. No doubt it'll be better for the scouts, better for the teams. They'll still miss the camaraderie of the week, around the draft, but it's all about what's best for the hockey side. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely it's always been a nice show. It's a great opportunity for everybody in the hockey industry to come together in one location and meet. And really, that is the premier event. That's the only event that really, in fact, does that. But maybe something else will come of it.
The one big thing about the draft, and I'll never forget when I was coaching University of New Brunswick, and I ran into Brian Murray at the draft. and I had played against Brian's teams when I was in Brockville, and I reintroduced myself to Brian Murray, and we chatted, and I told him I was in coaching and all this. It was a great way to meet people. It was a great way for hockey people to connect, and that's something that we will that we'll miss. And you know, it's like every scouting job. How many scouts get hired at the draft? You know, so
the few that get fired too, Doug.
A lot get fired. A lot get fired. Especially a lot with 2 weeks left on their contract, which always really bothers me.
Oh, brother. And we get to look forward to having it in Vegas too, in the Sphere. So Super Bowl's there obviously this week, so it's kind of a bit of a shakedown, and then we get to I don't know, tear up the town. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it, and it's going to be a blast for sure. So Mike, is there anything else that you'd like to cover?
I think that really covers it. Like you say, I'm looking forward to working with Doug and Dino here in the coming weeks.
Absolutely.
I know that we're going to you've got an opportunity to gain some knowledge and insight each and every week, you know, not only on the topics, you know, for that weekly report, but also as it relates to the current issues in hockey. And it seems each week there's a new hot button issue, and I'm looking forward to each and every week. Doug, I grab a piece of paper and a pen, and not only do I learn from listening to stories from Harry, and I know I'll learn lots from you and Dino, but you know, the students too, they bring some great questions that, you know, it's like, hey, I never thought about it that way. And you know what? And that's going to help add to my toolbox.
There you go. 100%. Even I thought the questions tonight were terrific. And, you know, I haven't had a lot of experience doing the Q&A like this, but I really enjoyed the questions, and really, they were really thoughtful, and you can tell the people are into it, which is fun.
Absolutely. That's what we love. That's what we bring here at SMWW. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dr. Lashbrook as well. So the recording for this will be sent out tomorrow once it becomes available. So if there's anything that you guys like to go back and re-listen to, look out for my email coming later tomorrow. And as a reminder, Doug's class with Mike and with Dino starts up next week. And you get to have weekly Zoom chats with those three gentlemen as well. So hope to see a lot of you in there, and as well as in Vegas for the NHL Draft Conference. As I just mentioned, information about that will be coming out as soon as we can, hopefully sometime in early March. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at info@smww.com, and we'll get you all taken care of. So again, Doug, Mike, appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your guys' evenings, okay?
Doug, I'll connect with you sometime tomorrow.
Okay, man. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye-bye.